Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, February 25th, 2019. I am Dave Biddle. Very happy to be joined by Patrick Murphy. Patrick, spring football for Ohio State starts exactly a week from today. A little hard to believe, but March 4th, the Buckeyes are going to get after it. So let's get after some of the things we're interested in seeing for spring ball. Let's start with some of the new starters that we're really curious to see this spring. I guess we can start right at the top with Justin Fields. Just what are you looking forward to? Presuming he's able to beat out Matthew Baldwin, but just obviously that's the one thing I think fans are probably going to be most interested in is how Justin Fields looked. Just give a rundown of what you expect to see from young Mr. Fields.
I just want to see it. I mean, obviously we watched him from afar last year playing for Georgia, but without any sort of knowledge that he was going to be coming to Ohio State this past year. I wasn't paying close attention to what the Bulldogs did, especially their backup quarterback. So seeing him in action at all will be interesting. And then just how he's looking in this offense. Obviously, it's going to be very early. He's thrown with receivers and whatnot, but he hasn't had to actually run the offense yet. So I think how he progresses throughout spring in terms of his comfort in the offense. We heard from Tate Martell back when we were at the Rose Bowl that this offense isn't one that you can just pick up right away. Well, how true is that? Especially for, a five-star guy and that was so highly touted like Fields. And then, not
that Tate Martell had any ulterior motives.
Well, and I mean, Ryan Days even said that he didn't think Dwayne Haskins would have been ready, even last year after a year in the system. So I am interested to see how true that is or how quickly Justin Fields picks it up. And then I just want to see, what he brings. Obviously, he's not Dwayne Haskins in terms of, being as much of a pocket passer. I think he's a little bit more JT Barrett in his willingness to run. So how much is that going to play a part in the offense this year? What do they go to? And, just trying to glean as much as possible on what the Justin Fields-led Ohio State offense is going to look like. Obviously, we won't see everything, even in the spring game. They're not going to run the full gamut of stuff, but, just what it's going to look like and start to formulate an idea of how Justin Fields, like you said, assuming he beats out Matthew Baldwin, how he'll look as a quarterback over these next 2 years.
And the young man that'll be probably snapping him the ball, Josh Myers. I mean, it's not a sure thing, but Ryan Day said, when we were at the Rose Bowl, at the time we were asking him about Michael Jordan and everything, if Mike Jordan would come back, and he was getting into that. It seemed like he was kind of optimistic that Jordan would come back, and that's when he just flat out said, if Mike does come back, the plan is to move him back to guard and have Josh Myers be the starting center. So we'll see if Josh Myers can lock that job down this spring. The Buckeyes are obviously hoping to land a grad transfer. Jonah Jackson's at the top of their list. He can play center. He can play guard. I think they want him as a guard. RJ Proctor, I think they want him as a guard as well. So we'll see if they can land one of those guys. But it looks like, I know they got Harry Miller coming in too as a true freshman, but looks like third-year sophomore Josh Myers is going to be the guy at center. What do you expect to see from him this spring?
I hope to see the kind of continued development that we've seen at center over the past handful of years, going back even, before the back-to-back Remington winners in Billy Price and Pat Elflein. I know people weren't thrilled with Michael Jordan last year, but the kid did finish as an All-American by two different major outlets. So he did something right to get to that level. So, we need to see that kind of consistency continued at Ohio State. You need to see that, Josh Myers is comfortable not only snapping the ball and everything that comes along with that, but kind of being that leader of the offensive line. He's still, a third-year player, but this is going to be his first year seeing meaningful snaps. In spring ball, if he looks like he's comfortable, handling everything that goes along with being the center, being the leader of that offensive line, one of the leaders of the offense, I think you feel much more comfortable about how things are going to look with the line going forward, especially considering you only have one, returning full-time starter. Needs to be ready and prove that in spring. otherwise, you're going to have some questions going into summer and into fall about how this offensive line will come together and gel and whatnot. And, I think he has an opportunity with no graduate transfer having come in yet to seal that spot and give the coaching staff no doubt, even if they do land somebody that, hey, this is our center, we like what we got from him in spring, a graduate transfer can kind of fill in elsewhere or whatever. So big opportunity for Josh Myers here.
Any other new starters you're really intrigued to see this spring? Because, I mean, a lot of the new starters are guys that have played a ton, like B.B. Landers. I guess he's a returning starter, but Devon Hamilton is who I was going to mention. Devon Hamilton's going to be a new starter, but he's played a ton. There are other guys like Sean Wade. I don't know if you consider him a returning starter or not, but just he's played a lot. But so any other new starters you're really intrigued to see?
I'll just be interested. You mentioned like a Sean Wade. Where is he lining up? We saw him play corner, safety, nickel. How is he being used, especially with so many new defensive coaches? Where does he fit into their scheme? Obviously a 5-star guy coming out of high school. The injury is freshman year. And last year you got to see it in glimpses, but I think it'll be important to find a position for him and, get him comfortable in that role, whatever it is, and, go from there, because I think he's a great talent and I think he'll be able to do some great things once he figures out exactly where he's going. But like you said, a lot of these guys are returning. I'll be interested to see what the linebackers look like in terms of who is where. I imagine that they'll at least start with the same 3, but that could very well change, especially as we go through spring. Obviously a new linebacker coach in Al Washington, so they're going to be making some different decisions, kind of a clean slate type of thing. So I'll be interested to see kind of where guys stand coming out of these winter workouts, but obviously that's not your normal football stuff. So yeah, like you said, a lot of these guys are people we've seen. The offensive line, we kind of have an idea of where guys are going to fill in. But so those are the main guys that I'll be interested in terms of returning or new starters, I guess.
Usually in spring ball, we're talking about like at least seems like 4 or 5 guys that are coming back from serious injuries, like, that wiped them out for a whole year. Really, there's only 2 guys, and that's including Matthew Baldwin, the aforementioned Matthew Baldwin, who, tore his ACL back in high school. So it's been, we're going to, by the time the season starts, it's going to be close to 2 years. It'll be 2 years removed from that. So Matthew Baldwin's one guy who's coming back from injury, kind of. And Brandon Bowen's the big one, though, especially with the needs on the offensive line. He can play tackle, he can play guard, and he was playing very well as the starting right guard before he got hurt as a third-year sophomore halfway through that season in 2017 against Maryland. But now, like I said, hasn't played football for a year and a half. I can't wait to see how he looks this spring, because as a 5th-year senior, he could be huge for the Buckeyes, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, he needs to be, because the depth is not where it needs to be on that offensive line. If he's not a guy who's able to come in and kind of pick up where he left off before that injury in 2017, then they're going to be in trouble. He's, like you said, a veteran guy, a versatile guy who can play either guard position, can play tackle if they need him to. He could be very important to this offensive line. And then Matthew Baldwin, we just went and talked about Justin Fields and what he could do, but he's, as they say, one broken shoestring away from being in the game. And according to Ryan Day, he's going to have a chance in this competition. I think we both believe, and probably most of the listeners believe, that this is Justin Fields' team. But, I hope for the sake of Ohio State and for the sake of competition that he makes it tough. He comes out and shows that, hey, I wasn't just a guy that Ohio State went and got when things started to turn on Emory Jones, and it looks like he may be going elsewhere. I think, Ryan Day's talked about how impressed he was with him when he saw him at Lake Travis. Now's going to be our first chance to see it. So I'll be very interested to watch him and kind of see what he's going to bring. We saw a little bit when we were out there at the Rose Bowl. He was throwing some out there, but very, very small amounts. So I think the spring game will be interesting for him as well. That'll be his first game action. We were talking a year ago about Tate Martell in that situation, and he went out and played well, I thought, in that spring game. So that gave you some confidence, especially once Joe Burrow transferred. I think you need that similar type of confidence, because he's going to be your backup quarterback. And really beyond that, they don't, Chris Chuganoff is there, but I don't think anyone expects Chris Chuganoff to play a ton. And they hope that he doesn't. So Matthew Baldwin needs to show that, hey, I can be the guy and I can run this offense if anything happens to Justin Fields.
I'm curious what you think about how Ryan Day, this of course will be his first spring as head coach. What you think he'll do that's similar to what Urban did, how he handles spring ball, and what do you think Ryan Day might do differently? I thought that would be an interesting topic, little fun way to close the show here. We're just spitballing, but what do you think is going to be similar? What do you think is going to be different?
Well, one thing I noticed when Ryan Day spoke, when they introduced the new coaching staff at the basketball game a week and a half or so ago, he's talked about getting into spring ball and being excited, and then he said for the spring game that it would be offense versus defense. And I don't know if that means that they're going to have the normal spring game, or if it's going to be like I remember Tressel doing some just drills in terms of not necessarily broken down into teams and keeping score as much. So maybe he just meant hey, we're going to get out there and we're going to play offense versus defense and it's going to look like a game. Or I don't know if he's planning to do things a little differently. So that was the first thing that popped into my mind. But I'll just be interested to see how this team is run. It's been 7 seasons under Urban Meyer, and we did get a little glimpse of it last year. And we didn't see anything in fall camp, but those first few weeks of the season with Urban Meyer suspended, but that was still Urban Meyer's team. Ryan Day was just out there kind of running things, and he made that very clear. We don't even have Ryan Day when he coached here to go back on, because this is his first job as a head coach. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I'm curious to see what our media availability looks like, because as we've talked about prior to this, a lot of times when they bring in a new coach, there's a bit more access. Maybe we get to watch a full practice here and there, something like that, which would be really nice for insight, I think, not only for us, but so then we can pass on to the listeners and our readers as well about, hey, here's some more in-depth analysis on this type of stuff, because we actually got to see it. I'm hopeful for that. But just the coaching staff as a whole, how are guys adjusting to, guys that have been in the NFL, how are they adjusting to coming back to college? Guys that have been doing one thing at Michigan for the last, year or last several years, how does that all change? How does it all kind of mesh as well, especially on defense? A lot of new coaches there. They were saying all the right things when we talked to them on signing day about how the coaching staff was coming together. But until you get out on the field and you guys are working together and working with the players, I don't think you can say that for sure. So I expect it to be just fine, but just the whole newness of it, I think, is going to be exciting. The energy, I imagine, will be pretty high, and just seeing how things are all working will be interesting to me.
Great stuff as always from Patrick Murphy. Thank you very much, Patrick. And thanks to all the listeners out there for tuning in to the show. I appreciate it. Hope everyone has a great day. Let's hear that Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.